Well, joining us now is Robin Aitken, who's a former BBC journalist and author of Can We Trust the BBC? Robin, we're keeping you busy at the moment, aren't we? Or Gary Lineker is. But this is the problem, isn't it? Gary Lineker is keeping the BBC very busy, and constantly we've just learned that the last guidelines that came in were in response to a Lineker peccadillo, if you will. And essentially the man's got a messianic complex and an ego bigger than Jupiter and thinks he's bigger than the BBC, and it sets a dangerous precedent if they don't do something.
Alex, I mean, he's a self-obsessed twerp, I think. But my views are irrelevant in this. I thought, didn't you? I don't know, but I thought that Tim Davie walking into New Broadcasting House looked a bit haunted. And I can only imagine that he's feeling thoroughly fed up with the whole business of Gary Lineker, because actually Lineker has made Davie and the rest of the BBC hierarchy look pretty impotent. And I think it's a very bad look for the corporation. It looks as if Lineker can get away with whatever he wants. I'm interested in what Shah said, Samir Shah, the incoming chairman, said at the select committee today. I think actually that the appointment of Shah is a good move, actually, both for the BBC and by the government, because Shah is a broadcasting man himself. And I think what he said this morning was by way of stiffening the resolve of BBC management to do something about what is now becoming a rather farcical episode with all these Lineker tweets and this repeated embarrassment of Lineker being in the headlines. And I think Samir Shah is a BBC loyalist, it's true, but he's also an independent thinking man himself. And I think he will, my guess is that he'll be telling Tim Davie and the rest of the executives that enough is enough and something must be done.
It's an encouraging development, Robin, that's the BBC chairman. I mean, throughout history, BBC chairmen have never known anything about broadcasting, which always seemed extremely strange to me. So it's a good thing that we have someone who knows about broadcasting. But what Samir Shah is telling the committee today is quite obvious, as we discussed yesterday. If the BBC is putting out this statement, I wonder what we can draw from this. They put out Tim Davie's statement after Gary's squabble on Twitter with the Tory MPs, saying he can say what he likes, but he must be civil and he must not undermine or impugn anyone else's character. Now, this is not an issue for debate. If he definitely impugned Grant Shapps' character, saying, "Oh, you know, you go around calling yourself four names, four Shapps." That's not good for his character. And he suggested that Jonathan Gullis can't read. That is not civil. So it is incumbent upon Tim Davie pretty damn soon, is it not, to actually do something? I think licence fee payers would like to see some clarity here. And I know personally very much that the BBC staff would like Gary Lineker to be disciplined, if not sacked. He's got to do something, Davie, now, hasn't he?
I think so. And you touch on something there, Kevin. I think that Lineker fancies himself as a man with a great sense of humour. And I imagine that he thought he was just being cheeky and clever when he was talking about Shapps in that way and the other MPs. But actually, as any observer of the social media scene knows, you know, cracking jokes on X, Twitter, as was, you know, that's a high-risk business because actually when they're in cold print, they don't look so funny. So to suggest that, you know, a Tory MP can't read, that's pretty okay. You know, it might be funny on Have I Got News for You, although there's a programme which needs the axe just as much as Lineker does.
Agree with you there.
Yeah, I mean, just on an aside there, you know, Have I Got News for You has become establishment satire. I mean, it's a contradiction in terms. You've got these licensed clowns who think they're being funny, and they're just talking to themselves and people like themselves. It's a terrible program. That's an aside. Back to the main problem. I think you're right. Actually, I think the pressure now will be building intensely on Tim Davie. And if he doesn't do something now, it begins to look as though he doesn't have any control over his own staff, his own stars. And that's that's really quite serious because it suggests a loss of authority within the organisation. And really, I don't see how the Director General can go on in those terms. As I say, I think he looked a bit haunted there when he was walking in. I think this is a repeated headache now. He must have a migraine every time he sees the name Lineker.
How much free rein does someone like Tim Davie have, or if it is Samir Shan coming in as the new Director General, how much authority do they have? Are they bound by sort of diktat and written guidelines?
Well, Samir Shah, who I know a little from his time at Lime Grove back in the 90s, when he was drafted in from LWT, he doesn't have any executive power over appointments or anything like that. The committee, the chairman, is a hands-off chairman. He can't interfere with programming. He can't interfere directly. But of course, what he is saying to the Director General, who's the top executive in the BBC, the man with the executive power, carries a lot of weight, or should carry a lot of weight. And I think that now Tim Davie is beginning to look very weak, very wounded. And this can't go on if he is to maintain any credibility as the Director General. And the BBC, this is a precarious moment for the BBC. There are government reviews coming up about the future of the licence fee and so on and so forth. Tim Davie is well aware of that, and he has always proclaimed himself to be a reformer. But if he doesn't get hold of this situation, it's going to run away with him, and he's going to look weaker and weaker and weaker. And I think he really has now to stamp his authority in some way. My own feeling is that there should be now at least a suspension of Lineker from programme duties by the BBC. Whether he should be sacked or not, I'm not one of those. I never like to call for fellow journalists or performers to be sacked. I think it's it's too easy to be calling for him to be sacked. But I do think that he needs to be disciplined, and he needs to be shown his place, which is as a subordinate to the chief executive of the BBC, Tim Davie. So a period of 3 months silence from him, I think, would be now very welcome.
I agree. Thank you very much, Robin. That's Robin Aitken. See you tomorrow, by the way, no doubt.